What's up, everybody? Hazeblade here. Today we're going to be taking a look at some leaked images of a Resident Evil 3 Remake, which came out on the PlayStation Network yesterday. Small collection of images, and we're going to offer up some reactions and perspective, and hopefully a little bit of good speculation on where this is going, and go from there. So, the first image that we have is the presumably Japanese titling for the game, just how Resident Evil 2 Remake was titled Biohazard RE2. We have the same style font and lettering indicating Biohazard RE3. We have a bit of a backdrop here with Nemesis. We'll talk about his facial features here in just a minute and what they could mean. As well as it looks like we already have facial scanning done for Jill and Carlos. So going into the next images here, we've also got an image here of Biohazard RE3 Z version, which from what I heard is the censored version of the game for audiences in countries that don't allow like massive blood and gore and all that stuff, just from what I've heard. But we also get another side shot of Nemesis here. And again, we'll kind of talk about the facial features here in just a minute and what I think about it. We've also got a very not clear image at all of what appears to be Nemesis standing on the street, extending one of the tentacles that he has out of his right hand. And there appears to be, which when you're zooming in, you actually can't see this that well, but it looks like it's a police car right here. So it's probably Brad, and he's probably gonna get wrecked. But that's pure speculation, of course. And last but not least, we have, if it'll let me zoom out anymore, we have a closer image of Jill and her facial scan. I'm not sure if they've already put, so typically when you do facial scans, sometimes you have the same person doing the voice acting, sometimes not, but it's hard to say based on this image whether they've already put the facial capture in with the actual body scan. So, but she looks great. In my opinion, not Julia Voth like what a lot of people were thinking it was going to be, but still, I think a very good representation of Jill. And it looks like she might already be wearing the side pack that she will be getting from Carlos at some point, I would presume. If not from Carlos in the remake, probably picking it up off of like a dead corpse or whatever. So let's go back to the beginning and let's talk about the facial features of Nemesis a little bit. So you can definitely tell that the T103 is prominent in a lot of his facial features. So if you'll remember from Mr. X in Resident Evil 2 Remake, very pale in skin tone, and you can actually see the top of his head right here. You can actually see right here that it looks very much like Mr. X with that very pale skin tone, and also Mr. X had a lot of like wrinkles right around his upper and like side facial region and on his cheeks. You can actually see that start right here, and it looks like they did basically like, I don't know if you would call it necessarily a skin graft, but Nemesis was injected with a special parasite that gives him some of his increased intelligence, and it almost looks like they basically removed the top of his head and replaced it with a bunch of stuff and then put it back on after they performed all the surgery. Another meme going around Twitter right now is his nose is extremely crooked. Personally, my thought on it is I think it's cool. I think that it just makes him look all that much more grotesque. Nemesis, even in the original images, didn't really look that presentable either. I mean, he basically didn't have a nose, let's be real. But I think the more gruesome and the more grotesque you make it look, ultimately, the more immersive it's going to be in the long run. So my kind of thing that I was like, okay, a little bit with was the teeth. They're incredibly long. Like, even if you were to peel back the gum line a little bit, I don't think this is what you would see. And it doesn't look like they did peel back the gum line. It looks like they just removed his lips. So it's not like, which he never had lips, so to be fair. But it just seems like his teeth are quite long and filed down. But again, he looks grotesque. He looks super, super cool in my opinion. And you can still see, even like along his cheekbones, you can still see a lot of what appears to be Mr. X, and a lot of those similarities, because he is taken from a T-103 clone. So he should look a lot like Mr. X in quite a few different ways. A couple other things that I noticed is that normally he would have the tentacles kind of coming over his shoulders, and you can see this hose that kind of comes around, and on this next image right here, you can kind of see a little bit better view of it coming around and going onto his chest. Now, I would assume, and a lot of other people have speculated this too, that this is where his heart is, and they've put like armor over top of it rather than the trench coat. And then this is basically just like a shielding for it. And then I would assume that there's a tentacle that kind of comes back, or around his back and all that good stuff. And it also looks like, I don't know if you guys see this too, but that looks like a lock, like a chain, like a padlock. I don't know if you guys see that too, but it kind of looks like a padlock a little bit. But honestly, I don't know. But this gives you a little bit better kind of side view of his face. And I think, again, with the exception of the teeth being particularly long, I think that, again, it does a really great job of just showing how grotesque and how ultimately, like, tough this guy is going to be in game. So, very reminiscent. I think this image looks a lot more like Nemesis here. With that side shot, I think it's a lot more reminiscent, with the exception, as I said, of the teeth. The teeth are still a little bit of a meme for me. But the next thing that I want to talk about a little bit is kind of speculation on when this thing is gonna come out, who's developing it, and what direction that they're gonna go. Another thing that I noticed is that this bottom section of the image here is only a slightly modified version of the Raccoon City skyline from Resident Evil 2. It's almost exactly the same photo with a mask over top of it to show Nemesis. It's almost exactly the same photo as one of the original RE2 images that came out. So I thought that was kind of funny, that they didn't really put a whole lot of work into the skyline. I mean, to be fair, it's always going to be the same skyline, right? It's taken during the same time. But I just thought it was a little funny that they used the same photo. So we're getting this leak really, really soon after Resident Evil 2 Remake came out. And a lot of fans have been demanding that they announce RE3 for months and months and months. Personally, I feel like that's a little crazy considering that we just got Resident Evil 2 Remake. But obviously, here we are with cover images of Resident Evil 3 Remake. So my thoughts on it are that we could be getting this as early as 2020, according to rumors and people that apparently have connections to people inside of Capcom. Apparently, the rumors are that either A, it was outsourced, B, that the Dev 1 team was working on this at the same time that they were working on RE2, and that they, considering the time frame that they announced Resident Evil 2 Remake back in, I think it was 2015, that's 4 years. When you look at a development cycle, which is typically 3 years, I'd say that you have a pretty good argument to say that they could have actually done it, considering by the time this game comes out, it will have been 5 years since the initial announcement of Resident Evil 2. But then again, that still doesn't line up with the sense that they didn't really say that, I mean, they just said a couple months ago that they would only consider doing RE3 if the fan demand was enough. And so that came off, I think, to everybody that it wasn't in development, but it could be if the fans were clamoring for it. So it's really hard to say. So based on the images that we have here, I would say that until we get more information, which I would presume that since the Game Awards are next week, we'll probably be getting an announcement during that time. But I'd say we could be during any number of stages regarding development of this game. When it comes to scanning models in the game, that's a process that just, knowing what I know about video game development and how easy that process is now, it wouldn't take very long to use the same stock image from Resident Evil 2 like we see right here, scan these three guys, or I should say guys and girl, into these images and slap a cover image on it, right? I mean, that's a process that realistically could only take a couple of weeks. So when you think about it, that's not all that realistic to say that if this is still actually like relatively early in development and we're not going to get a release date until like late 2020 or maybe even 2021, and they're just going to announce it now, it's not out of line to say that maybe they just did some scans so that way they could actually announce it and say that it's coming and get fans excited about it. That's definitely realistic, considering that process of scanning things in and putting that together isn't necessarily a process that takes particularly long. And I think it's also passable to say that this could very easily be a prototype version of Nemesis, and that we kind of just have a preview of what it will look like, but maybe this isn't the final version of Nemesis that we see. The next question that brings up, though, is that these actually look like they may possibly be taken from cutscenes. Well, again, it's not to say that they, in the last, year or two, haven't decided to just throw a pitch together on, hey, what if we do RE3? What does that look like? And to do a 2-minute long teaser trailer with the models and everything that they've built from RE2 and the scans that they've done right here for Resident Evil 3. So it's not that outlandish to say that maybe they do have a teaser trailer already, but you can still have a teaser trailer and still be early in development. So that's also plausible as well, in my opinion. Now, as far as who I think is developing it, that could really go any number of ways. So as we know, Project Resistance, which is also rumored to be, the name of the game is also supposed to be Resident Evil Resistance, from what the rumors are saying, and from some other screenshots that were leaked. It's very easy to say that this also could have been outsourced. If so, not really sure who the developer's going to be. I don't think it's going to be the same developer as Project Resistance, but there is a possibility that maybe it was outsourced, and that's how they were able to come up with the resources to put this together so quickly. The only alternative that I can think of is that maybe they had, because Capcom has multiple dev teams, right? The Dev 1 team is responsible for Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's possible, again, given the fact that they have been working on Resident Evil 2 Remake for over 4 years, that perhaps maybe what we saw is that they handed off some of the assets to another dev team to then start working on this a couple of years ago. So until we get more information, which again, I think the Game Awards is probably the most likely place, considering that we have these images, and typically when this stuff gets leaked around the time that you would find a big announcement, more often than not, the next event is where it gets announced. So same thing happened with Project Resistance. Very, very same thing happened. So, but yeah, so based on what I see here, I think Nemesis looks great. I think Jill and I mean, let's talk about the hair for a second, though. Yo, Carlos, go get your hair cut, man. Come on now, or at least take it. Take a brush through there. You know what I mean? It's like a mop. But aside from that, he looks great. So yeah, I mean, with all being said, I think the scans look great. I think the initial kind of development of Nemesis, I think, looks solid. They have a good foundation for it. Definitely looks intimidating, and he will probably be a very strong adversary in Resident Evil 3 Remake. But I want to know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let's keep pushing to deliver some more Resident Evil content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.